My nearest family lives 6,700 kilometers away. So I didn't really think December would be a big month for books. Oh, how wrong I was. Welcome to Mad on Books, where I talk about fantasy mostly, science fiction sometimes, and comics occasionally. I thought at the beginning of the month I wouldn't be getting a whole lot of gifts and I wouldn't be buying myself many books because my TBR shelf is already almost completely full. I've got more than enough to read. In both cases, I was completely wrong. I don't personally have any friends nearby that are really into books. And most of my friends and I, we don't really give each other gifts for Christmas. We don't really worry about Christmas very much. But I got some completely surprise gifts that I was totally not expecting. So first of all, at the beginning of the month was my birthday, 4th of December. And Joanna heard about that and sent me a book. Unfortunately, it was a book that I had already ordered myself, and her gift arrived while my order was still on the way. So I sent back her book and used the refund from that to get a book I know that she really loves, which is Stoner, which doesn't have anything to do with drugs. It's apparently about a relatively normal man who is an academic, but as boring as that sounds, everyone's been raving about this. John Williams is meant to be an excellent author. I've never read anything by him. So I got this, and I got myself a book I've been wanting to get for a while, Lonesome Dove. And the two of these were a little bit more than the refund from Joanna's gift, but I consider them both a gift from Joanna. So thank you very much, Joanna. I'm a huge fan of Western movies, specifically Clint Eastwood Westerns. I think I've seen all of Clint Eastwood's Westerns that he was in and or produced and or directed at least twice, and many of them more than that. But I've never read a Western novel, and it seems like if you're going to start reading a Western novel, this is the place to start. It's chunkier than I was expecting, but I'm looking forward to it, and we'll try and get it in 2023. Another gift that totally took me by surprise, I saw a nice booktube lady raving about this book and immediately put it on my wish list. And about a week later, it arrived, and the nice booktube lady, Evie, sent me Simon Jimenez's The Spear Cuts Through Water. I was completely not expecting this. Evie and I have never really interacted before, and I only recently invited her to a Friends on Books, which is going to be later in January. And as a thank you, she went on my wish list and bought the book that she recommended to me and had it sent to me. So thank you so much, Evie. This sounds amazing. It sounds like it's exactly my kind of thing, and I look forward to it. Another completely unexpected gift. Tori, who has gotten to be probably my best booktube friend, also went on my wish list and sent me a book that she really likes, which I had on there because I think Alan had talked about it quite a lot. That is The Trader's Blades by Sébastien de Castell, the first of the Greatcoats books. And it sounds like something I will probably like quite a lot. It's gotten a lot of good reviews. I know that some people are not so crazy about it. I'm not sure, but Tori likes it and I had it on my wish list. So now I've got it. Thank you, Tori. So you know how I said at the beginning that I've got more than enough to read? I've also got low impulse control. So I had to buy myself some things, and I guess I was justifying most of it as kind of, I don't really have family giving me Christmas gifts, so I'll give myself Christmas gifts. Does that make sense? First of all, I was always jealous of people like Mike on Mike's book reviews who seem to have fancy bookmarks. So I went on Etsy, which is a great place to get unique things, and I got this, which is a leather bookmark with a little tassel, and it's got Mad on Books stamped on it in sort of a greenish blue, which I thought was kind of cool. And I got a set of 3 wooden bookmarks. This one I think is maple. There's an oak one and a cherry one, but they're already in books somewhere. And they've got a little wooden tassel or a leather tassel kind of thing at the top. And they're very thin, so they work quite well as bookmarks. So now I've got some unique bookmarks that aren't just crappy paper that was sent to me by the book depository or I picked up at my local bookstore. So I've got those. And I got Shogun. As if I wasn't involved in enough read-alongs, there is a read-along happening on the Grimoire Discord of this book. A lot of people will be reading it together, and I have been eyeing this edition because it's so goddamn sexy. I mean, how hot is that? Yeah, it's really, really sweet looking. Josh has been talking about it. Tori's been talking about it. Theo's been talking about it. Everyone's been talking about it. So I picked this chunker up. Luckily, the plan is only to read part of it each month and not try and do the whole thing in one month. I've got more than enough to read in January, February, and March, but this one will be split over 3 months. So I picked that up as well because I just couldn't control myself. And really, for no other reason than Tori has become a good friend, I bought her book. It's probably not for me. Tori also already said that. And it's kind of YA-ish and has to do with werewolves and stuff. But I'm really interested in the book that Tori is working on right now, which is not YA. And she's a friend who's an author. So I thought I'd support her. Whether I like the book or not, we'll see. But picked that up to support Tori. And I kept hearing people talking about this. I actually decided that I wanted to read more short stories. There was a time in the past where I read a lot of short stories, and I really, really enjoyed them because it's so focused. Like a good short story is so focused, and it can have a concept and go right into that concept, and it doesn't have a lot of extraneous stuff around it. So they can be a really nice palate cleanser, something to sort of squeeze in between other books, put in a couple of short stories, get a bit of a break. I often read a denser book like Malazan something, and I need a couple of days to process it. And that's a good time to maybe just, instead of reading nothing, read a couple of short stories at least. So Qin Liu, famous by now on BookTube anyway for The Grace of Kings and that whole series. I've got the first of those, but that's also a chunky book. I'm not sure when I'll get to it, but I keep hearing people say that the Paper Menagerie collection, Paper Menagerie is one of the stories, and I've already read a few of them. Like I said, I'm already using my wooden bookmarks. That's the cherry wood bookmark. I've already read a couple of stories in there, and they're great. So I got the Paper Menagerie, and I got the year's Best Fantasy Volume 1, which was published this year. All these collections fly around all the time. This one's got quite a pretty cover. It's got a couple of well-known authors, or well-known to me, like Elizabeth Bear, but it's also got a bunch of names that I've never heard before. So I'm really interested to see what is in here. And I got The New Voices of Fantasy, which is not that new, I think. Yeah, 2017, so it's 5 years old. But it's got a whole bunch of names that I've never heard of before. In fact, none that I have heard of before. So it's a good way to discover new authors and get into some short stories. So got that one as well. And I've got another one on the way, which is much older, but I got it mostly because it has a Malazan short story in it. And then, totally different thing. Totally different thing. Not fantasy, not science fiction, not comics. I have been thinking for a long time about artificial intelligence. I'm old enough and I work in a technical enough field that I saw from the beginning what the internet did to the world and how the internet itself changed and how the existence of the internet and the web changed everything else. I met the guy who invented the web many years ago. So I've been on that ride the whole time. And for the last 5 years or so, a good friend of mine who's a designer who also works in the internet stuff, we've worked together, and every time we go out for a beer, we're always like, I wonder what's next. Because the rate of change of everything in the world has been speeding up constantly ever since we've had any kind of technology. You look back at history, how long it took someone to invent something, and now like a world-changing invention like the printing press, and how long it takes now, it's much shorter. And I keep thinking the next thing is artificial intelligence. It's already getting there. We've already got limited artificial intelligence stuck into all of our devices all over the place. So I'm really, really interested and concerned about what the next big step is going to be, how artificial intelligence is going to transform our lives. And a number of years ago, I read this book, Superintelligence by Nick Bostrom. This terrified the fuck out of me. But it also made me think about artificial intelligence. Basically, this is a Harvard professor. I believe he's a Harvard professor, or he was at least. He went around to all of the artificial intelligence experts in the world that he could find and asked them a whole bunch of questions. Got their opinions on how things would develop, when things might develop, what the risks might be, that kind of thing. And then he lays it all out in a very structured and understandable way. And it's not a technical book. It's not explaining to you how to program an artificial intelligence. It's much more about the paths, dangers, and strategies of what's coming and how inevitable a lot of it may be. So I wanted to terrify myself again. So I want to reread this, and I didn't have it in physical, so I bought a copy. And to balance it out a little bit, I bought Life 3.0, which sounds like, I haven't read this one, it sounds like it's a more optimistic take on what artificial intelligence can do for us in the near future. And maybe one that's in between those two, called The Alignment Problem. How can machines learn human values? Which is one of the things that Bostrom talks about in Superintelligence. This one sounds like it's maybe a little denser, but it's also, I think, approaching it from a primarily thinking about it and not technical perspective. One of the biggest challenges in AI is teaching an AI, which may be eventually in the future what we would describe as conscious, teaching it values that align with ours so that it doesn't just kill everyone in the world or do a whole bunch of stuff that we don't want it to do. If a machine actually becomes fully conscious at some point in the future, that's going to be one of the biggest problems, is what kind of values is it going to have, and why does it have those values, and are they going to align with our values? So I'm really interested to read that as well. And then to bring it back to fiction, Katsuo Ishiguro, who is a Japanese author that I've never read, but I've heard a lot of good things about, wrote a book that primarily focuses on artificial intelligence. So Clara and the Sun. Clara is an artificially intelligent character. She is an artificial friend. And I don't know much more about this than that. And I will stay ignorant and just read it. There was a list of good books to read about artificial intelligence, and this was the only fiction book that was listed on there. So I'm really interested to read that, and maybe other things by Ishiguro. This one, actually, it's a little unclear whether it's the author or the book. I think it's the author. Won the Nobel Prize in Literature, probably for a different book. I'm not sure about that. Let me know down in the comments if you know. But I'm super interested to read Clara and the Sun. So it turns out December was not a slim haul month at all. It was actually a pretty chunky haul month. But a bunch of good things there. I'm getting impatient. That's always a good sign. First of all, great sign if I want to reread a book. Second of all, great sign if I'm super impatient to read a new book. And I'm impatient to read a lot of those. So again, thank you, Evie. Thank you, Tori. And thank you, Joanna. These look awesome. And thank you, Low Impulse Control. I have a sexy Shogun edition and many other things to read, as if I didn't already have enough. So I hope you're well. I hope you also keep buying and gifting awesome books, and I'll see you next time.